Hello guys, Sly here, and welcome back to another episode of the Caspian Game Awards. So tonight, we have a very special, and I mean a very special episode for you guys tonight, because I've got multiple announcements for you guys before we actually get into this, but more importantly, we're going to be talking about the year of our Lord, 2005. So I've been waiting for this year to talk about this year ever since I started this series. Because, well, truth be told, and, this shouldn't surprise you, 2005 was a really damn good year for video games. Really, really damn good. Like, it's actually kind of... Like, I was even surprised with just how damn good of a year it was. And I knew that it was a really damn good year. So, suffice to say, I'm pretty excited to talk about it. But of course, before we actually get into this, I have one massive announcement that I've got as far as just the content that will be happening going forward. So, remember when I said that I was hoping to finally get a new PC at some point this year because, well, let's just be real here. I have a pretty old computer from, well, it's an old-ass computer from 2017. Yeah. Granted, I got it in 2018, but by the time we got it, it was already outdated. So, for me, I was stuck on extremely dated hardware, and because of that, I wasn't able to actually stream anything that I wanted to play for you guys on my computer. Like, anything from, 2017 onwards was just not viable, which sucks, because there's so many games that obviously have released since then that I really wanted to play for you guys, but alas, I just couldn't. But let's just say that, well, you kind of already see it a little bit if you are paying attention to the background, but okay, it shouldn't surprise you. I finally got a new computer. So, with a new microphone. So, yeah, I finally got a new PC. It's down there. It's an iBuyPower Y40 with a 4070 NVIDIA graphics card. And so, I'm pretty excited to be able to use it. Yeah, I know it may not be like the best of the best, but I made sure to look at the specs themselves, and this is like perfect for me. Because again, it has a 4070, which is the best one for me as someone who does live streams, as well as who does occasional videos once in a blue moon. And so yeah, it will help me in those aspects. But more importantly, well, like I said, I'll actually be able to finally play a lot of the games that I've been wanting to play for you guys. And here's something else that is important with this. Unlike the current computer that I'm using, which, by the way, it shouldn't surprise you, this will be the last stream that I'll be using my old computer. My old computer couldn't be upgraded. Like, yeah, it was a pre-built like PC that used specific parts for that specific model. But this bad boy down here, I can actually upgrade it now. So whenever the 50 series of NVIDIA graphics cards come out, I'll be able to actually upgrade it to that. Or if I need to get a new motherboard, or if I need to get more RAM, although to be fair, I have extra RAM sticks there, so I'll have 64 gigabytes of RAM, so I'm actually able to, get things running. And it also is liquid cooling, so it'll actually stay cooler for much longer. And overall, it's just like a massive upgrade compared to what I have right now. The only thing that the current computer I have right now that has above over this is that it does have a disk drive, though I'm looking to see if I can find like a cheap one. It's not like extremely important, but for my PC game collection right there, I want to still be able to have the option. So, and like I said, I also got a new microphone back there. It is it's a HyperX Quadcast. So we didn't buy a pop filter for it quite yet. But once I get all that set up, I'm really, like, it's going to be awesome. And I am very, very, very happy about the fact that I finally got that. Which, yes, does mean a bit of an end of an era as far as my current build. But rest assured, I will still be keeping the computer I have currently that I'm using right now to stream. But keep in mind, I'm going to be using it as a backup, just in case if something happens here. Also, yeah, my glasses keep... God, yeah, why do my glasses keep getting crooked? What the hell? I don't like that. Yeah, I noticed... Whatever. Ignore the crookedness of my glasses. But you get the point. I'm really excited, and I'm very excited to be able to do... Oh, shoot, not that. I'm very excited to be able to actually get into a lot of the games I've been wanting to stream for you guys for such a long time. So I hope you guys are excited to see what is going to happen in the future, especially not just on Twitch, but also on YouTube. So I'm finally actually in the modern era as far as PC gaming. But that announcement out of the way, let's get into the year at hand. Going back even further in time, 2005. Now, I am just going to be frank right now about 2005. I know I've said this several times before for a few of the other years that we talked about, but I do legitimately think that 2005 actually might have been the best year in video game history. Which, let me explain why. Because, well, it was an amazing year in its own right. And hell, I mean, you can probably see all the games that are behind me back here, which, of course, let's point out everything that I have back here. Of course, I've got all of your I've got some cult classics games back here. You got like Mercenaries, Time Splitters, Future Perfect, Dynasty Warriors 5, SOCOM 3 right there, Soul Calibur 3. Also some pretty big hitters from that year though, including Devil May Cry 3, Guitar Hero, fucking Castlevania Curse of Darkness. I just got that today, by the way, which is insane. We got Ratchet and Clank Ratchet and Deadlocked, Call of Duty 2 right there, Battlefield 2, and even just like, amazing year for music. We got Cody and Cambria's Good Apollo 1, Panic at the Disco's Fear of You Can't Sweat Out, Paramore's All We Know Is Falling right there. Sorry, it's kind of awkward. Gorilla's Demon Days, Thrice's Visu, bunch of other albums that unfortunately I do not have displayed, but rest assured, a lot of good music. And, well, lest we forget about the most important debuts of the most important releases of 2005. Sly 3 Honor Among Thieves, Fall Out Boys From Under the Cork Tree, and Star Wars Revenge of the Sith. I mean, yeah, I'm wearing my Revenge of the Sith shirt right here. So, of course, I had to prepare for 2005. And, well, even though I don't have it displayed, keep in mind as well, Avatar The Last Airbender also aired in 2005. So, honestly, I don't think I've mentioned this before, but I do... God, I keep clicking on that. If I'm going to be honest, this might sound weird, but for me personally, I think 2005 was probably the best year for general pop culture. Now, was it a perfect year? No. I would say overall movies that year were very mixed at best. And, well, there were some dog shit movies that came out in 2005 that shall not be named on the stream. You guys know what movies. And, well, you even had a few other low-key releases that weren't particularly popular that year as far as video games concerned. Like, Rainbow Six Lockdown and Medal of Honor European Assault, kind of games that were being seen as a bit tad in the tooth for their respective franchises. So I own them because I own every game in a franchise. So keep that in mind. And even a bunch of music releases that weren't particularly popular at the time. Case in point, Weezer's Make Believe. I don't hate this album. As a matter of fact, I think Gratitude is way worse, but you get the point. Like, it wasn't a perfect year, but overall, I think that the ratio of, like, good to bad was, like, 90%, like, was, like, 80 to 90% good in comparison to, like, 10 to 20%, like, awful. Like, because I go by, because it also keep in mind, of course, we're not talking about anything political related or anything about, like, real world, because obviously Hurricane Katrina happened that year, and that was a pretty bad thing. But as far as, like, pop culture stuff, like, video games and TV, kind of, and music, I do personally consider 2005 to be the magnum opus as far as just general pop culture. Like I said, it was not a perfect year, because like I said, films were the only category that were just kind of from 2005. But I do consider, generally speaking, 2005 to be, at least in my opinion, the best year for just pop culture as a whole. Which, that might be a controversial take for some, but that's my personal opinion. I have a huge respect for stuff that came out that year. So, and because of that, I will be a little bit biased when it comes to tonight's stream. And, well, frankly, that's kind of why it took a while for me to actually get the stream going. Not just because of that, but also because I'm just going to guarantee you there's going to be quite a few snubs. So, if there is a game that you were wanting to be on here, don't worry. You can wait for the honorable mentions / guilty pleasures section. But let's actually go over, of course, the general categories. So, obviously, I would definitely say that, like, the other closest year that we've gotten to 2005, as far as, like, what I consider to be the best years, would be 2007. But the reason why I do consider 2005 to be not only the best year that we've covered thus far, but also just the best year period as well, ignore the garage, this is the only year that was solid all around, including game by new studio. Like, every single category have enough nominees for me to be able to choose, which I cannot say for many other years that are as damn good. That is why I think that 2005 might actually be the best year that we'll ever cover. So, although to be fair, 2004 is also a really damn good year, but I'll need to double check that one. But as of right now, 2005 is the best year as far as this is concerned. But of course, for those who are new, let's go over the rules. So, of course, rule number 1, we are not the Grammys. We do not cover weird dates. We do the entire year from January 1st to December 31st of that respective year. No weird cutoff dates, like half of the year before, and then the second, and then like the other half of like the year. We're not stupid like that. Don't be like the Grammys.
Don't yell at me, yell at the Grammys.
Stupid. Rule number 2, as far as expansion packs are concerned, expansions only from games released not in the same year will be applied. So, if a game came out in 2005 and also had an expansion pack that same year, we're not going to count that expansion pack, because we want to give credit to expansions for games that came out in years before. So, rule number 3, for Game of the Year, of course, it has to be a generally liked game, and it has to be a completely new game. No remakes or remasters. I'm probably going to remove that rule for the next time, so do keep that in mind. And, well, personally, there's only going to be games that I'm personally interested in that will be chosen. So, because art style and aesthetics and biases for different games matter to me, which, this is going to piss some people off, but I'm going to point this out now. That unfortunately means Shadow of the Colossus is not going to be nominated. I'm sorry, guys, but I just could not stand this game. I thought it was tedious and repetitive. If you like the game, that is completely fine, but I personally just could not stand playing this game. Granted, that was 4 years ago. I might replay this game again, but as of right now, I just cannot, in good faith, nominate this because I really do not like this game. And there's all the dislikes that are on the YouTube upload right there. God, this is gonna be... But don't worry. I can think of like at least 20 other games that people do like that are gonna be nominated. So, and of course, let's get into that particular thing. So, let's get into the best game by a new studio. So, surprisingly enough... Oh, and by the way, it should not surprise you with the actual original Game Awards. Awful. As a matter of fact, some of the nominees that will be going through that the Game Awards actually had, it's going to be pretty bad. These last 3 years we're going to be talking about for the OG Game Awards, just expect them to be the worst thing in the world. Because they are. So that should not surprise you. And, well, I mean, to be fair, this was the first year that Samuel L. Jackson was actually the host of the Game Awards. Yes, Samuel L. Jackson was the host for the Video Game Awards from 2005 to 2007. I forgot to mention that, by the way. But, honestly, that's the highlight. Everything else, no. So, and, well, Best Game in a New Studio was not a category that they originally had, which... I'm not surprised, because it's the Spike Video Game Awards that we're talking about here. So, I am not surprised. Again, they're more focused on groping women than they are actually giving out proper game awards. So, it's only the truth. But anyways, so, there were actually a lot of games that I feel like do fit this category. So, let's go over those. And one of these games, people are actually going to be shocked that I ended up deciding to nominate it. So, let's go over that. So, let's go over... Okay, so first of all, we've got God of War. Yes, 2005 was the debut for the original God of War, which was gigantic when it came out. Like, this was a pretty damn big deal. Because, well, it was made by a lesser-known studio at the time, Santa Monica Studios. And they pretty much proved that, yeah, no, you can have a competitor to something like Devil May Cry and do it in your own way. So, it also helped that, yeah, there were a bunch of other factors that were at play with God of War, with the movement and the combat and the epic soundtrack, which was a huge highlight for this game. So yeah, like God of War makes sense as to why I'm nominating this. Now, but that being said, people are actually going to be shocked with this. I also ended up choosing Psychonauts. Now, of course, I played through this game last year, and let's just say I didn't have the most kind things to say at it at the time, but keep in mind, I still gave it a 6 out of 10, which is kind of what I generally use as my personal metric for games that I have played before. If I gave a game at least a 6 out of 10 or above, it can qualify. And truth to be told, it's not that I hate this game. It's because I actually do have a weird likeness to this game. I do think it is overrated, but the art direction that is with this game is so unique, and the actual like movement of the game, I don't have a problem with. Like this game controls, for the most part, generally as well as it should. So, and well, of course, the composer of the soundtrack, who did all the music, also did the Sly Cooper music, as well as a bunch of Star Wars music, so I have at least a bit of respect for that. I guess I'm more so nominating this in the sense of its general art direction, rather than like it being a personal favorite of mine. But of course, if you do like this game, no shade whatsoever. As a matter of fact, I have several friends who do absolutely love this game and stand by it. So, and I will admit, I have grown on it. So I do respect it for what it is, and that's why I'm going to give it the nod. And then we have Guild Wars. Oh, by the way, Double Fine Productions. This was their first game with Psychonauts. But then we got Guild Wars, which was, this is the, this was an MMO. Let me check who exactly made it again. Yeah, ArenaNet. So this was their first title, of course. They are well more known for Guild Wars 2, but this was their sort of first crack at that. And it was a pretty decent like competitor to World of Warcraft at the time. Because keep in mind, World of Warcraft took the world by storm by this point. It was a huge deal. And to have someone be directly competing with Blizzard in that field and actually still stand on your own, that is a respectable feat. Like, not many games I can think of have been able to do that. Even MMO games that I kind of like, they didn't even, stand the test of time in comparison to something like Guild Wars. So, I have nothing but respect for this game, like, as a result. So. And then we have Forza Motorsports. Oh, by the way, I just remembered, even though, yes, Santa Monica, they did make a game before God of War, again, this is not the first game you made, this is the first game that got you attention. I probably should have specified that. I do apologize. This is the first game that got you attention from the grander gaming landscape. Not your first game. That's relevant to Guitar Hero later, but let's start with Forza. So Forza, of course, I will admit, for this version of Forza is a bit more janky in comparison to the later games. So you can definitely argue whether or not this should even be on here, but for starting the Forza franchise, I have to at least give it a bit of props, especially when you consider the fact that like racing games in general were pretty much at their peak by this point. And, well, having another franchise start around that time, I can respect. So, by the way, the studio who made it, let me double check, because I want to make sure that I have that. Also, ignore the noises in the background. I don't even know what's going on. Yes, Turn 10 Studios. So, which of course are known for making nothing but Forza Motorsport, every Forza Motorsports game. Not every Forza game. I think Forza Horizon is outsourced to a different studio, but yeah. So yeah, out of respect, I'm giving this the pick. And then last but not least, we got ourselves Guitar Hero with Harmonix. And yes, before anyone says, yes, Harmonix did exist before Guitar Hero, but they didn't really achieve mainstream success until this bad boy came out. Guitar Hero took the world by storm by 2005. And of course, the rest is history. We all know what happened. And yes, of course, I do have a copy on the shelf. Right there. So, even I ended up getting it. Though I will say, it is not the best Guitar Hero. The button delay can be a bit janky. But I would generally say that, this is definitely the best game. This is definitely the best game to represent Harmonix as far as this category is concerned. And as far as, influence on, video games, I had to at least give it a nod. So, but of course, there's only one winner. And, well, I got the envelope as always, so let's announce said winner. So, here we go. The award for the best game by a new studio for 2005 goes to... God, there are so many noises back there. God. Don't worry, yeah. So yeah. Award for the best game by new studio for 2005 goes to... God of War. So, you can definitely say that, like, yeah, this is probably the correct choice, especially with how this franchise would end up becoming in later years. So, but as far as a debut, this was a monumental debut for a new franchise. Like, of course, obviously a lot of people know this game for its intense combat, but one thing I will give credit with this game, that some people I've actually used as an argument as a negative to the newer God of War games, is, well, the freedom of movement. This game came from an era where it was more so, not really an isometric camera, but like it was more so just straight behind the back. Like it was just kind of a little bit of ways from behind like the character's back, as opposed to the up close, over the shoulder cameras that we're used to nowadays. And people use that as a reason as to describe why the older God of War games are superior. And while I don't necessarily agree with every single point, that is something that is worth noting, because God of War, I will admit, can feel a bit restrictive in the newer games. And having that, camera and ease of being able to turn around allows for so much more freedom to be able to actually control Kratos. Which, of course, leads us into getting into the boss fights. This game has some very iconic moments, especially with the boss fights. Of course, everyone knows about the beginning section where you fight the giant Hydra. Like, of course, it's an iconic scene in a lot of games. But even going up against the actual gods themselves, yeah, that can be pretty intense. Granted, this is not the one where you fight Zeus. As a matter of fact, I don't remember who exactly you fight in this. Again, I never finished this game. I did play it though, but I never. Yeah, let me look up. Yeah, God of War. No, 2005. That's 2018's villain. Ares, that's right. Okay, yeah, you go after Ares in this game. And yeah, no, that's pretty cool. Which, of course, makes sense because, Ares is the god of war in actual Greek mythology. And, well, Kratos becomes the god of war. So, or at least in this sort of universe. So, of course, that makes sense. And even just the actual game itself. This is a late PlayStation 2 game. And it still looks damn good. Even after all this time. Oh my god. It's insane. Like, again, I use that Hydra part as an example to just showcase how damn good this game can look. It's intense. Which, of course, speaking of that scene, the score in this game is fantastic. It's very bombastic. It's very, I guess you can call it, I don't want to call it grim dark, but like it's definitely more on like a darker sort of, hyper intense, score, and it complements the gameplay fantastically. So if you guys haven't, I recommend you guys check out God of War. Get a copy either on the PS2 or do what I did. I actually got it on PlayStation 3. I ended up getting it on the PlayStation 3. So I might get a PS2 copy at some point, but shelving space can be a bit of a pain, so I had to get the PS 3 version. But regardless, I still recommend you guys check this game out. It is still fantastic to this day. So, and again, this is just the first category, and I have that much to say about this game. So, we're only in the tip of the iceberg as far as to how damn good of a year 2005 was. You guys will be shocked. Which, of course, then leads us into the action-adventure category. So, and this is the first category that was actually at the original Game Awards. So, did they at least recognize the games from this year? No. They didn't. Oh my god, this is so bad. This is so bad. Okay. Let's get the obvious out of the way. $50 Bulletproof is easily not only the objective worst game out of this entire row, but it is also one of the worst games that released that year, if not the worst. How the hell this game got a nominee, I will never... Oh, well, I know why. It's because the Game Awards back in the day, they didn't actually give a shit. They didn't give a shit about, like, actual quality of games. So, yeah. And again, no disrespect to 50 Cent. Hip-hop is in rap music. It's not my thing, personally. But no. No. No, 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 no. You want to know how bad this game scores are, by the way? Let me look it up, actually. Let me go to Metacritic. Oh, yeah. Look, yeah. Here's the scores for you guys, ladies and gentlemen. This was a nominee back in 2005. So, yeah, no. Also, fucking, Peter Jackson's King Kong game. Also, no. Granted, it's not as bad, but, like, come on, dude. You can't do that. I mean, okay. It's already kind of pushing it to do, like, a movie license game. Which, to be fair, there are good movie license games out there. Don't get it twisted. But based off of the King Kong movie from that year, I mean, I heard generally good things about that movie. I've never seen it myself. But, like, I heard it's generally received as, like, an okay movie. Especially considering that, like I said, 2005 wasn't particularly the greatest year for movies anyways. But, like, come on, dude. This is lame. This is another lame choice. So, yeah, no. Bad. Also, what the fuck is the Warriors? I've never heard of this game until looking this up. Apparently, like, it's based off like a movie from like the 70s. Like, yeah, it was like a cult classic movie from 1979, I believe. So yeah, no, another movie tie-in game that for a movie that, like, frankly just wasn't relevant by 2005. So did it even get that? Okay, I mean, it got the movie itself. It got at least decent reviews, right? Like, let me double check. Critical reception. God damn it. Let me check. I know Rotten Tomatoes is not like the best website, but like, Yeah, okay, it got decent reviews, so it's like it's a cult classic movie. But like, why are you nominating a game for this? Like, granted, I know the 2000s had like that wave of like 70s nostalgia, because you know how like in the 2010s there was like that wave of 80s nostalgia that I absolutely despise, and how we're kind of having like both a 90s and somewhat of a 2000s nostalgia wave nowadays. Back in the 2000s, there's actually a bit of a 70s nostalgia wave that I kind of remember. So I guess that was part of that, but come on, guys. It's not. I don't even know if the game even got that good reviews. I gotta check that. I gotta check. It did. It should. I doubt it got like decent like reviews. Oh, never mind. It did, but I still wouldn't nominate it personally. So no. Obviously, God of War. Obviously, I gave it an award, so naturally, I do agree with this one. And then we have Resident Evil 4, which, funny enough, I do agree with it getting a nomination for a category, but I don't. I was debating this, but ultimately, I ended up choosing it for a different category. So, it obviously, Resident Evil 4 makes sense. It is one of the best horror games ever made. So, and yeah, no, it is a lot of fun. It's more of a shooter game, though. And, well, it did help revolutionize the way in which, well, not only survival horror games would eventually kind of become from that point onwards, but it also helped kind of develop the modern way in which we have third-person shooter controls. So, funny enough, even though I actually do, in principle, agree with this pick, I don't actually agree with this being the best category for it. So, but yeah, no. Thank God they did not give 50 Cent Bulletproof the win. That would have been an automatic hootiitis, and that would have actually driven me up the wall. God of War ended up actually winning this, which, out of these nominees, yeah, that would have been the one that I would have chosen in principle. But let's actually put in, like, actual nominees on here. So, these are the ones I ended up choosing. So, and, well, several of these should not surprise you guys if you guys have watched the channel. So, but let's start with Oddworld, Stranger's Wrath. So, this was the follow-up to, obviously, Oddworld's Abe's Odyssey, Abe's Exodus, and Munch's Odyssey back in the late 90s and early 2000s. So this was more so, it was set in the same universe, but it was like a completely separate story from that. It was its own thing. And funny enough, this actually kinda, I've heard comparisons to, funny enough, between this and Fallout 3 of all games, which, come to think of it, actually makes a lot of sense. Because, this game, I mean, generally speaking, there is a lot of shooting in this game, but I do think that it's probably better to describe it as an action adventure overall, especially when you consider the fact that, like, not only do you have the camera toggle between first and third person, so it's not just exclusively one or the other, but there's also a bunch of, different mechanics and just a bunch of different gameplay things that do differentiate it from being just a straight up shooter, at least in comparison to Resident Evil 4. So that's why I nominate this game here. But also, this game has a really cool art style. Like, funny enough, I wouldn't be too surprised if, like, a movie like Rango took inspiration from this game. Because this game has, like, a cool, like, Wild West, cartoonish look to it. And I think it works really damn well for what it has here. So, and, of course, being set in the Oddworld universe helps with that sort of, grim, I don't want to say grim dark, but just sort of that more darker tone. And yeah, I think it works wonders with this game. I think it's a really cool piece of, tech at the time. So go check out Oddworld Stranger's Wrath. Thankfully, it's on PC. So, and then, well, all these other games, if you guys have watched this series, or if you guys know me, it should not surprise you whatsoever that I'm nominating these games. So, Devil May Cry 3, of course, was sort of a revitalization after the controversial Devil May Cry 2. This game pretty much went back to the drawing board and, well, brought back Devil May Cry into a more respected franchise yet again. And it also helps that this acted as... This was a prequel, right? If I'm not mistaken. So... Well, yeah, no, it's Dante's Awakening. So yeah, this was a prequel. So it kind of, established Dante as the badass that we all know and love him today. Which is pretty cool. So... yeah, as far as a prequel story is concerned, as well as, fixing a lot of the mistakes that DMC2 had, respectable choice. And this game is fun as hell. So, of course. And then we've got, well, okay, we'll get to Chaos Theory in a little bit. Let's talk Lego Star Wars, the video game, first. So, funny enough, this might sound weird, but I actually never played the original Lego Star Wars up until fairly recently. So, funny enough, I actually played this at a convention of all things. So, but I do remember playing the, of course, complete saga version of this game, because yes, I was more familiar with Lego Star Wars: The Complete Saga, which of course is a compilation with this and Lego Star Wars 2 levels. So, but I am ranking this separately because, well, this game, yeah, it's a movie license game technically, as well as, well, just a licensed game in general since it's a Lego. But funny enough, this game actually kind of helped the Lego brand in a lot of ways. Because this basically showed that, yeah, you can have a genuinely really good Lego game that people can have fun and enjoy. Because, well, let's just be real here. Before 2005, Lego games were kind of lame. But this showed that you can have a lot of personality with a Lego game and just straight up have fun with it. And, yeah, no, this game is pretty, like, as far as, like, just, pop cultural icons, yeah, no, Lego Star Wars has become such a big cultural phenomenon. Just the Lego Star Wars part, so, which, I mean, helps because it, it's two massive IPs combined into one. So I do generally think that this is still a really damn good game to this day. And, well, let's get into the final two games right here. Motherfucking Splinter Cell Chaos Theory and motherfucking Sly 3 Honor Among Thieves. So, let's start with Chaos Theory. This is hands down one of the best games of all time. Chaos Theory is so damn fun and really did... Well, okay, admittedly, the games before this really did showcase that there could be a direct competitor to Metal Gear Solid. But Chaos Theory expanded the tool roster that was in the original, like in the first few games, and upped the maturity level from a rated T to a rated M, which was a benefit, because it allows for way more freedom as opposed to the more restrictive design of the earlier games. And it's completely benefited from it. So, I know I have not streamed this game for you guys yet, but I do have plans to, like, once I actually play through Pandora tomorrow for you guys, I am going to be doing a Chaos Theory playthrough. It's that damn good, and I really want to show you. It is one of the best games of all time. God, I'm sorry. I know I'm gushing about this game, and we haven't even talked about this game yet. I fucking love Chaos Theory. So, go fucking play it. If there's anything to take away from what I'm trying to say right now, go play Chaos Theory. You will not regret it, especially if you love stealth games. Like, Sam Fisher will actually make you scared at night. Okay, go check it out. And, well, of course, you guys knew it. Sly 3 Honor Among Thieves. How could I not nominate this game? It is also, in my opinion, one of the best games of all time. You cannot argue with me on that front. Like, it is, hands down, a great follow-up to one of my other favorite games of all time. And just completely goes with it. Yes, I do have, like, more so nitpicks with the game. Although, to be fair, let's be real, not every single game's perfect, and that includes Chaos Theory. But, I fucking love this game, I'm sorry. Also, I mean, you saw my playthrough of this game. You guys know how much I love it. So, like, it should not surprise you as to why this is even nominated. Like, I know I'm not even, like, fully going into detail, but I don't care. So, truth be told, again, I haven't even announced the winner, and, like, it's a tough choice. Honestly, this might have been one of the hardest things for me to actually come up with, like, choices for. Not because there weren't enough, but there were just too many. That's what made just this entire thing hard for me, is what games did I not want to snub? So, because you could make a good argument for, honestly, any of these games. Oddworld, Stranger's Wrath, for its amazing art direction, and its sort of, influence on, a lot of other post-apocalyptic games. Devil May Cry 3 and God of War for their hack and slash action. Obviously, Devil May Cry 3 appealing to a certain crowd, while God of War appealing to another. Lego Star Wars, the video game, of course, being a cultural phenomenon that is still as strong as it was back then, even to this day. And, well, Chaos Theory, of course, being one of the best stealth games of all time, along with Sly 3, although more action-adventure. But yeah, like, God, oh my God, okay. As excited as I am, ultimately, as always, I had to choose a winner. God damn it, now I'm actually somewhat regretting some of these picks. Whatever. Okay, it should not surprise you. I will be doing a massive Redux stream of every single one of my podcast episodes in like an ultra Caspian Awards podcast stream. So don't worry. But God fucking damn it. Okay, whatever. Okay. Let's do it. So, before I do anything, let's just calm ourselves down. I'm gonna get some water. Let's do this. So, the award for the best action-adventure game of 2005, tentatively, goes to Sly 3 Honor Among Thieves. You have no idea how close this was between this and Splinter Cell Chaos Theory. It was this close. But ultimately, I decided to choose Sly 3 for this particular spot. It should not surprise you exactly why. First of all, this game, funny enough, had some quality of life changes that weren't actually in Sly 2. So, for example, you can actually choose between whether or not you wanted to have the camera in a normal rotation or an inverted rotation. That wasn't a thing in Sly 2. That was an awesome change that they did here. That's good. Also, this, being, sort of what was originally supposed to be kind of the last hurrah of this series at the time, this game has a ton of new playable characters. Granted, most of them actually all of them, are more so used for like the in-game jobs and missions. But still, it's good to be able to actually be able to play around with some new characters here and there. It's also, of course, complemented with mostly good level design, with a few hitches here and there, but thankfully nothing that will hinder the whole experience. I would say that there's only only one section that is kind of lame. But again, that's only one section out of fucking 60 or 70. So rest assured, I would say that this game, the gameplay in all the gameplay styles, whether it's just normal running around in the quasi open worlds, or the vehicle stuff, or a lot of the more specialized characters, I think it all works out well. And it's also complemented by, well, some of the antagonists that you go up against. Again, a Cold Alliance. Holy shit, that fucking area. So, and, well, to help with a lot of that, they added in new challenge modes where you can actually replay certain sections of different parts of, the game, and do extra challenges, for, more unlocks. And, well, if you guys watched my stream, this was one of the few games that actually did make me cry. So, again, that should tell you how damn good of a year from 2005. Best action adventure, we haven't even gotten to best narrative, and this game made me cry. So, but yeah, no, overall though, I fucking love this game. It's one of my favorite games of all time. I've played this game so many goddamn times, front to back. I can probably beat the game without having Sly ever die. So it will be a challenge to do, but I think that might be a possibility. So unfortunately, spoiler alert, I did die at the final boss fight. And I did accidentally die in the last plane section. Yes, I know there was that Cold Alliance boss fight that I technically died in, but that was a glitch, and I stand by that's a glitch. I watched the VOD, so that one I won't count. But regardless, it is one of my favorite games of all time, and I hold it a lot to me personally. So, god damn it, my freaking, god damn it. I thought I got COVID away, but yeah, sorry, my nose is a bit runny right now. I guess my nose is so runny from me just talking about all these games and excitement. So, but whatever. Let's move on to the next category. So, which actually, before we get into this, you probably saw on the listing that the next category will be platformer. And, well, I've got a bit of a hot take. Granted, I think I've expressed this before, but I'm just going to straight up say this right now. Before we move on, yes, I nominated Sly 3 for Best Action Adventure and not Platformer. That is because, well, truth be told, I've never really considered Sly Cooper to have ever been a platformer series. The only exception is the first Sly Cooper game. I can see people calling that one a platformer. But the other games, Slice 2, 3, and Thieves in Time, they're not platformers. By definition, they are not. Because my definition of a platformer, and of course, let's get into the screen for it. My definition of a platformer is that, you go through the entire, a big majority of the gameplay is going through, point A to B through jumping obstacles. And well, yes, those are features in the Sly Cooper games. Those are relegated to very, very specific parts of the game that are not a big chunk of the gameplay. As a matter of fact, Sly 3 actually has the least amount of those. So by definition, it is not a platformer. So it will not be nominated here. So I say that because, well, I was able to find a decent amount of games that actually do fit into the category here. So, one of which I will admit is stretching my definition as well. So, do keep that in mind. Because, well, here we go. So, these are the games I ended up choosing for Best Platformer. So, Psychonauts, I chose as a part of that. So, which, fair. Again, I'd say, yeah, the big chunk of the gameplay is what I just described. So Psychonauts makes way more sense in my mind as a platformer than Sly Cooper does. So that should not surprise you. What is admittedly surprising to me, and I guess this one is kind of where I start stretching my definition a little bit. Prince of Persia: The Two Thrones. Yes, it's a platformer, but it's a fully one. Because again, well, yes, a big chunk of the gameplay is basically going through point A to point B through a series of obstacles where you do have to, like, you know, make a lot of, like, you know, jumping onto, like, different parts. It's kind of, it then starts getting into, like, you know, more parkour as opposed to, like, traditional platforming. It's the same reason as to why I do make the distinction of not only games like Sly Cooper, but we can also throw in games like Assassin's Creed, even Splinter Cell, Jedi Fallen Order, Tomb Raider, Uncharted. Like, those games, like, they have obstacles, but, like, nobody like, I wouldn't call them platformers. You know what I mean? Like, it's that sort of distinction that I think is kind of a fine line. Prince of Persia: Two Thrones does that, but, like, only barely. So that one's the only one that I'm hesitant to actually include on here. So, now that being said, oh, and also, well, I guess the art style doesn't really matter, but you know what I mean. I don't know. Platformer has always been just kind of a loosely broad term that, like, just kind of has always been kind of weird. It's, I mean, and again, I don't know. I might make an entire stream dedicated on just video game genres as a whole, because it's always been kind of a confusing thing, but whatever. Let's get into the other picks here. So, first of all, we got Legend of K. So, now, keep in mind, this is not the original game. This is not the anniversary version, which I know has a lot of compromises. We are not talking about that version. We are talking about the original 2005 release for the PlayStation 2. So, this is a little lesser known, you know, cult classic game that, honestly, you could make an argument was sort of the last of that era of games trying to make, like, a platformer mascot. Like, yeah, because obviously back in, like, the 80s, 90s, and even going into the early 2000s a little bit, there were quite a few games that were being made where they wanted to make, like, a platformer or, like, a console mascot. And yeah, Legend of K was sort of like that last era of that. So, and, you know, it combined a lot, like, it obviously combined platforming with some light fighting mechanics that I think pretty much worked well in the game's favor. So, I'm not going to say it's, like, the best game in the world or anything like that, but it's a respectable enough pick that, like, I kind of had to do it. And besides, I like the art direction that it has, so I'm more than willing to give it a nod here. And, well, that then gets us into Mega Man 04, which, again, it's not, like, considered to be the best Mega Man 0 game. I think most people think that, like, 02 is probably the best out of that sub-series. But I still think that, like, it's a respectable choice nonetheless. especially, like I said, Mega Man at the time was not particularly doing well. So I feel like this is probably the best choice for a Mega Man game is concerned. So I don't think anyone's going to be arguing with me on that. So, but yeah, but you can already probably tell, even by my choices, that like by 2005, platformers were starting to struggle a bit. Like, they were still like hanging around, but yeah, I'd say starting around 2004 and 5-ish, that's when the genre really started to decline in popularity, in favor of just general action adventure games, i.e. games like Sly Cooper, or even games that heavily more focus on other, gameplay styles. Okay, Ratchet and Clank, funny enough, was never a game that was intended for kids, so I'm not going to count that. But you know what I mean, like, which is why I labeled, like, funny enough, Lego Star Wars, yeah, that doesn't count as a platformer, which is why we did it in action adventure. But, like, yeah, games like that was being more marketed towards kids, because, well, you don't have to make a you don't have to make a game a platformer to attract kids. So, which, of course, that then gets us into the winner. So, here we go. So, the award for the best platformer game of 2005 goes to Prince of Persia: Two Thrones. Again, this one's a tentative one, because I will admit this would be the one that I would choose out of those choices. But okay, let's go as to why I ended up doing this. So first of all, of course, this was the last of the Sands of Time trilogy. So of course there was Sands of Time, like Prince of Persia: Sands of Time, then there was Warrior Within, and then there was Two Thrones. Sands of Time did so well, of course, it had to get a follow-up. Warrior Within, at the time, funny enough, actually didn't really do that well. Mostly because, well, they turned the prince into a goddamn edgelord, and it was a lot more darker than, like, it was intended. So much so that, like, Jordan Meckler, the original creator of Prince of Persia, actually condemned that version of Prince of Persia. That's how negatively received that original version of Prince of Persia, of Warriors Within was received. So Ubisoft ended up deciding to basically do a compromise and decided to kind of combine the elements of the first two games. They still had the edgier stuff, but instead of having the prince be like that, they decided to make a Dark Prince, which of course gets us into the Dark Prince mechanic, which I actually think is a pretty cool concept, because it allows for two separate gameplay styles for one character, which I think is pretty awesome. And of course, it is complemented by the improved movement mechanics that, they've basically perfected by this point, because admittedly, yeah, Sands of Time can feel a bit janky at points, but by this game, very, very, far less jank, which is awesome. So, and of course, the reverse time mechanic is still in this game, albeit it's not as reliable, it's not as, like, needed in comparison to the previous games. So that's obviously, it's more of a optional tool belt thing, which I'd say that's a fair trade, especially since you've got the Dark Prince on the your side. And, well, like I said, very tentatively calling it a platformer, but if it does count, then yeah, this is the most successful rated M platformer ever made. So yeah, it's right there on the shelf. So yeah, again, I have all the games, because again, Sly Cooper, Prince of Persia, Guitar Hero, God of War PS3's on the shelf, but I know I keep bragging. I'm sorry, but you get the point. Is like, yeah, I don't know. It's just, I guess that's also just kind of weird to me because it's like I don't really see platformers as being a rated M genre. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I see it more as like a rated E or E10 plus thing, which I think that I should mention that. I forgot to mention, yeah, 2005 was actually, I think, the first year that they implemented the E10 plus ESRB rating. Or was it 2004? It was one of those 2 years, but yeah, no, beforehand there wasn't actually rated E10 plus. So, but again, let's not get into video game history, like political history right now. Let's just focus on the games, which of course then gets us into the RPG category. So 2005 was also a really damn good year for role-playing games, I would say, as a whole. So did the Game Awards at least recognize that 2005 was a goated year for RPGs? Well, what do you think? Of course they didn't. So, okay. Let's get this out of the way. I respect the hell out of both World of Warcraft and Knights of the Old Republic 2. Even though people prefer KOTOR 1 over KOTOR 2, it is still a well-respected game, especially since, it was made by Obsidian. A lot of people love Obsidian. And, well, I don't think I need to explain how much of a damn deal World of Warcraft was. It took the world by storm, as I mentioned earlier, and is highly regarded as being one of the most influential games of all time. Strictly because it basically popularized the MMO genre as we know it today. But there's one problem with both of these picks. They're from 2004. So, again, I know why they have them here. It's because these were games that were, again, they had the weird COD updates, and truth be told, the Modern Game Awards also has the weird COD updates. So if the way in which the Game Awards now would have done 2005, I wouldn't be too surprised if they would have done the same thing. But again, you know my rule. I can't choose games that are from the year prior. It has to be games from that entire year, because it's just weird to have those weird COD updates talking about games from the year prior, because a game, it's just weird. I never understood it. I just straight up never understood why they Game Award or just award ceremonies do that. It's just a weird quirk. So, but yeah, I don't. Out of principle, I wouldn't choose them from 2005. And well, truth be told, I also would not choose X-Men Legends, whatever the hell that says, 2. Again, I am not a superhero guy, and also, I don't know if any Marvel fans even know that this game exists. So, yeah, no. That being said, though, Jade Empire and Dungeon Siege 2, I'd say those are fair enough picks. Jade Empire actually being a BioWare game. Funny enough, this was their first the first game that they did an original IP for. And while it wasn't the most successful game in their catalog, it's one that I still respect, especially since it has a cool ancient Chinese fantasy theme going on to it, and I like historical and fantasy stuff, so I can respect that for sure. And Dungeon Siege 2 was just more of a Western RPG equivalent to a Final Fantasy, which is why that game got a bit more traction. So I can respect both of those. Too bad those weren't the winners. The winner ended up being World of Warcraft, which it's not exactly Hootyitis. I feel like the X-Men's game probably would have been Hootyitis, but it's not a choice that I like for 2005. Again, that's a game from 2004. Stick to 2004. So, what did I end up choosing instead? Well, again, like I said, 2005 was a goated year. And that included RPGs. The fact that, like, these games were not nominated for that year. Okay, well, I know why this one wasn't nominated, because it didn't release in North America quite yet. So, I understand why this one didn't, but we'll get to that one later. Let's start off with Fire Emblem Path of Radiance. So, funny enough, I'd say that this was like the first Fire Emblem game that kind of got a lot of attention in the West. I mean, yeah, there was like the occasional Nintendo, like, there was the occasional GBA or even DS game that was released from the Fire Emblem series. But this was the first Fire Emblem game. Well, this was on GameCube, which I guess that's also part of the problem as well. Nintendo was not particularly doing that great in the early to mid 2000s. That is something that people forget, that the GameCube was not a successful console in comparison to other Nintendo consoles. Like, it was less successful than the N64, which was already struggling in its own right. And, well, this was another unfortunate hit on that. But, well, it doesn't help that because of that, this game is nearly impossible to get a physical copy for. I had to emulate this game. Yes, I will just straight up say that. Like, I am not spending $500 on a game. Fuck that. But what I did end up playing, I thought was actually kind of cool. Because they took... This was the first, I think... Yeah, this was the first, like, fully 3D game as well. And, well, it took advantage of that. And the way in which they presented the game, I thought was pretty cool. So, and, I don't know. I just feel like overall, yeah, no, Path of Radiance, if you can, like, find it somewhere, I'm not going to tell you where, for obvious reasons, I recommend you guys check it out. So, if to, like, kind of get yourself familiar with the way in which Fire Emblem games are like nowadays. So, yeah, I think that speaks for itself. Guild Wars, we've obviously talked about earlier. It was the first major successful competitor to World of Warcraft, so I'm not going to reassure that there. But, of course, we've got ourselves Castlevania Curse of Darkness. So this was the follow-up to Lament of Innocence, which came out 2 years prior. That was more of a hack-and-slash game, more akin to something like Devil May Cry. Whereas with Curse of Darkness, they turned it more into a full-fledged RPG. And, yeah, it was definitely for the better, I would say. Not that, like, Lament of Innocence was a bad game, because it's not. But this game definitely really showcased that, yeah, 3D Castlevanias can stand on their own and be pretty damn good in the gameplay department. Like, granted, like, again, it's funny, because, again, I literally just got this copy of the game literally today. Like, it's insane. Like, and again, that is the most expensive, physical game I've ever bought. So I am not telling you what the price of what I got it for, but let's just say that it is also a bit more inaccessible. So you're going to have to find alternative ways to actually play it. But what I do remember end up actually playing, I really enjoyed. So if you want to get into 3D Castlevanias, Curse of Darkness is definitely a good choice. Especially since it's not a game that you need a lot of information to really get yourself into too much. Yeah, it does some like creative liberties with some of the story bits, because keep in mind, it's supposed to take place after the events of Castlevania Castlevania 3. And yes, I know that like the television show did change around the characters a bit, because yes, what's his name? I know Isaac's in the game, but he's very different in this than he is in the show. God damn it, let me Curse of Darkness characters. Hector, that's right. And yeah, like some people didn't like the changes that they made to Hector in the show, because yeah, that is Hector, one of the Forge Masters, from this game, who worked for Dracula in this and also in the Castlevania show. So yes, the Castlevania show is actually loosely based off of this game, as well as Castlevania 3. It's confusing, but you get the point. So they did similarities. But anyways, I would still recommend you guys check it out, especially if you want a game that like is actually on the shorter side. This is a pretty short RPG in comparison. It's still going to take you probably like 15 hours to complete, but like I'd say that's honestly the perfect length for someone like me, as someone who doesn't like to play like games for too long. So yeah, no, check it out. And I'm also going to give it a shout out to Mario and Luigi Partners in Crime. So this is the second game in the Mario and Luigi sub-series of Mario games, where it's more akin to Super Mario RPG. So it's kind of in that lane of Mario games. And while, yes, I will admit, I don't particularly play Mario games for their role-playing games. Obviously, they're more known for their platformers. It's a game that, like, I felt like I had to give the nod to. Like, it's not a game that completely reinvents the wheel, but if you want an excuse to, play a Mario game that didn't do the typical stuff that Mario does, I would give it a bit of a look. And then last but not least, we got Kingdom Hearts 2, which, of course, let's not get into the whole Kingdom Hearts lore fucking thing. I'm not going to get into that whole thing. That is more of a Saimori question, since my friend Saimori is the Kingdom Hearts goddamn nerd. They know Kingdom Hearts to their thing. It was their favorite game for the longest time. So, and well, truth be told, Kingdom Hearts isn't exactly my favorite franchise ever. It is still like a franchise that, like, it's an interesting concept. Basically, just combine a bunch of Disney properties into just sort of like a cool multiverse thing. And yeah, that's something I can at least respect. So, granted, I'm not going to pretend that Kingdom Hearts 2 is like one of the better games in the franchise. Because, like, I don't know. I feel like it's weird because it's like I feel like the first Kingdom Hearts is like the only game that I hear consistently good things about, and then like Kingdom Hearts 2, and then everything onwards is just kind of, it depends. And it doesn't help that like it has some of the most convoluted goddamn lore in the entire, like, in just anything. So take that for what you will. But I still think that it's a respectable game for what it was able to accomplish. Yes, it came out in Japan in 2005, but that's our stipulation. It has, like, we're talking about original releases here, not like North American releases. So, because I want to be fair. But of course, let's get into the winner. So, here we go. So, the award for the best role-playing game of 2005 goes to Castlevania Curse of Darkness. Yeah. It might surprise you, but it shouldn't at the same time. as to why I ended up choosing this. So, again, and yes, I have played this. I'm not just saying that because I just got this today. I did emulate it. So, but that's only because, yeah, this game is fucking hard to find, and they never ported it to anything else, which is stupid. But, like I said, one of the biggest benefits for me is the length. Because it's not a long game, like, at all, in comparison to other role-playing games. And that's a net benefit for someone like me, because I typically am someone who doesn't like playing, like, one game for too long in certain sessions. So having a game that is a reasonable length, I can appreciate. Of course, as well, it's also helped by the fact that this game has a really cool atmosphere. Of course, going back to Romania, because the previous game actually took place in England. Lament of Innocence took place in England. This one goes back to Romania, so you're in Dracula's castle, and like a lot of the monsters and the bosses are pretty cool looking. I will admit the story is iffy, because keep in mind, this is around the time when video game stories were starting to become a bit more respected. And, well, it's not, like, terrible. You can definitely see some, like, you know? But regardless, it has a really cool atmosphere, and like I said, the enemies look pretty cool. And it's also complemented by a lot of the cool weapons that you have. You got tons of swords, axes. Hell, there's even a Gatling gun in the game, which is just like, what? Again, this is supposed to take place in like the European. This is supposed to take place in the Renaissance, and yeah, you just have a Gatling gun. So, although to be fair, there were motorbikes in there were motorbikes in the 1999 Castlevania game, and that takes place in like the 1870s, which is pretty dumb, but whatever. You get the point. And, well, it also helps that, well, since you are a Forge Master, you have access to being able to kind of create your own sort of creatures, which they can, at least if temporarily, help you out in a lot of these battles, which I find to be pretty cool. And, well, in a lot of players' eyes, this is considered to be the best 3D Castlevania game ever made. Like, it's not even close. Maybe Lord of the Shadow might be close in a lot of people's eyes, but I've seen more consistent positive reviews on this game, and for good reason. So, I'd say this is definitely the best choice for best role-playing game. So, at least in my opinion. Alright, now we get into the shooter games. So, this one was really tough to do, because, oh my god, there were so many games that I could have chosen, and hell, even I'm regretting some games that I ended up not picking. That's just how many games for the shooter category there were alone. Like, oh my god, it does hurt. It really does hurt. So, hell, I think after this, I'm definitely going to be regretting some of my choices. I'm probably already regretting some of my choices now. But ultimately, I am going to have to stick to my guts and just present what I ended up choosing. But before we do that, of course, let's go over the Game Awards choices, which I'd say is about, 60-40. So, first of all, let's, of course, talk about Battlefield 2. Battlefield 2, which is also on the shelf back there. Yeah, it's above Code and Cambria right there. Okay. Battlefield 2, I think, is one of the best Battlefield games, just period. It's, in my opinion, the best of the Refractor Engine era of Battlefield games. And it has a really cool... it has a lot of cool mechanics that they brought in, including the Commander mode. And, well, just the fact that it's like, huge open battles. I think it's pretty cool. So, Battlefield 2... I'd say that one's definitely a fair choice. Fear. Also a very fair choice. It's a game I played through. and I had a ton of fun playing through Fear. Like, especially with like the cool bullet time mechanics that they added in, as well as the horror elements. I think it complements the game very well. And it makes it one of the most unique games that I've personally have ever played. Like, I definitely recommend guys check out Fear. Like, it's really cool. And hell, yes, I ranted about this in the previous episode that, the Game Awards have always given, like, whenever they can, they always try to give out some sort of nominee to a Call of Duty game. And while I don't like that all of the time, this one I actually do respect, because Call of Duty 2, again, we played through it. I do think it is a good game. Is like, it has it held up entirely? Not like in every single department, but like you can definitely see where Infinity Ward we're going to go from this point onwards, especially since, well, yeah. So, but yeah, I do consider Call of Duty 2 to be a pretty damn good game, and I can see why they ended up choosing it, even if, yeah, hindsight's 2020, and they nominate Call of Duty for a category every goddamn year, which they shouldn't. But yeah, it's respectable, and well, yeah, there's the copy I've got right there. So yeah. However, we've got ourselves a dilemma here. We've got ourselves Perfect Dark Zero. So, this is going to be a hot take from me. So, hear me out. I don't think Perfect Dark 2 is that bad. Yeah, this game is not a very popular game for a lot of people. Like, people thought it was a massive disappointment, especially as a game that was supposed to be a prequel to the original Perfect Dark. But keep in mind, well, you're talking to someone who isn't really the biggest fan of the original Perfect Dark either. I am never gonna get respect. I'm never gonna get respect from the grander gaming landscape. God damn it. So, but yeah, you get. I don't know. It's difficult to talk about because, again, general consensus is very mixed. Some people like this game. Some people absolutely despise it. It doesn't help that, like, this was actually an Xbox 360 launch title, which, yes, I forgot to mention that. That it was actually one of the benefits of yeah, that was actually one of the benefits from 2005, is that, well, this was on the cusp of the 7th gen, and, well, the Xbox 360 actually came out around this time. So, for me personally, I don't think it's that bad. I still would nominate it, though. So, yeah. And then, last but not least, okay, Hatchery, hold on. Before we talk about Far Cry Instincts, where I'm going to talk about it, it should not surprise you. I'll be right back, because, yeah, there's something going on. So, I'll be right back. Alright, we got ourselves a furry friend here. So, Yeah, Kitty, we're doing a stream. He's been... Yeah, if we... But anyways, Far Cry Instincts, I mean, okay. No. I mean, first of all, this is a remake of the original Far Cry game, which, I mean, if you guys know my opinion about it...
Stupid bastard. Stupid bastard.
It's awful. I think the original Far Cry game is bad. It's just straight up has not aged well at all. It's genuinely really bad. So, yeah, you can probably sense where I'm going to say no. Granted, this was a console port of the game, and well, technically, it's not exactly the same game per se. It's not exactly the same game, but like it has the same exact story beats. So I guess it's whatever. It's complicated. Again, the the 2000s were fucking weird when it comes to like, you know, console and like PC ports of games. But regardless, no. I would not have Far Cry Instincts on here at all. I don't think that it has enough to really justify it. And well, it's not a very good game. It's based off a very not good game. So now that being said, Fear ended up being the game that won. So also, by the way, I keep looking at Nolan, like I think they just put Nolan North's face onto that guy. Oh my god, which makes sense because he's in the freaking game. So, and yes, that's the I'm gonna call that the MCR cliff. If you guys know, you know. Also, I forgot to call. Never mind. I'm not tying Prince back into this. Not the musician Prince, the other Prince, the funny Prince. But anyways, for the Sly Cooper thing. Anyways, these are the nominees I ended up choosing. Yes, this is where Resident Evil 4 is going to be nominated. Because again, it is a third-person shooter, mostly, and, well, as I stated, it was a revolutionary third-person shooter. So, I'd say this is definitely a good category to put it in. And, well, it makes sense anyways, because Resident Evil 4 is also considered by many to be one of the best games of all time. And I can definitely see it. I don't necessarily know if it's one of my personal favorite games, flat out, period, but it is a game that I highly do respect. Like, it is so damn fun, especially, like, just going through, like, the creepy parts in, like, the woods and shit. Yeah, just seeing all these, like, you know, infected villagers, it's like, it's so creepy. Like, it's creepy, but in a really cool way. And, well, this was at least in a lot of people's eyes, this is pretty much the first modern Resident Evil game. So, I gotta, you know, pay a lot of respect to Resident Evil 4. I'm also gonna nominate Star Wars Republic Commando in this. Now, again, this might surprise some people, but again, I gave this game a 6 out of 10. I think it is a cool game. It is overrated in certain circles. I don't think it's like a masterpiece Star Wars game like some people make it out to be. Trust me, it has its problems. But being a more casual, laid-back, squad-based shooter, I think is actually a pretty cool change of pace, especially when you consider the fact that, like, Star Wars first-person shooters, funny enough, they're not the most common games out there. So to have a game that's like a dedicated first-person shooter is pretty cool. And of course, it is complemented by the fact that this is set in the Clone Wars, which is my personal favorite, like, just era within the Star Wars universe. And yeah, no, it's just a lot of fun that I would definitely recommend you guys check out. Even if it is kind of weird that, like, the battle droids are all gray in the game. Like, I don't know, they did some weird creative liberty with that. I don't fucking know why they did that. It's weird. But yeah. And then, well, we've got ourselves Time Splitters Future Perfect. So this is, of course, the follow-up to Time Splitters 2. And it is highly regarded as being the best Time Splitters game, especially in its story department, because, well, there was a bit more of an actual focus on its narrative with this one. Which, fair enough. They did kind of slow down the actual gameplay of it, so it's not exactly a retro shooter by this point. It's more of a traditional shooter, but that's not to say that it was bad, because I would still consider it to be a pretty good game in its own right, even if it does have some weird stuff. But that's Time Splitters; it's to be expected. Now, going to the opposite of arena / retro shooters, let's go to the tactical shooter department. SWAT 4. Oh my god, SWAT 4 is a lot of fun. So, you guys know me, I like the old school Rainbow Six games, like Rainbow Six 3 back, essentially. Well, let's just say that this is basically Rainbow Six 4. Well, if this game didn't fucking exist. So yeah, this is, at least in my opinion, the true Rainbow Six 4. Like, it has a lot of the same exact mechanics that Rainbow Six 3 had, just a bit more streamlined. And there's a few more tools that you got at your disposal, including the sniper cam. You actually have like the wedge blocker, so that you can prevent people from going in or out of doors. There's a lot more of an emphasis to actually arrest people in this, as opposed to the original Rainbow Six games, where it was just more so room clearing, as opposed to like being precise with your movements. This game basically forced you to do all that stuff. And I don't know, it's just a lot more. Yeah, there's just a lot more tools that you can actually use that I do like this game sort of presenting. So I've got nothing but respect for SWAT 4. So, and it pretty much helped to bring us games like Ready or Not, and that's pretty cool. Again, these are the types of tactical shooters that I love the most, is the more CQB room clearing types of tactical shooters. So I had to put this as a nominee. But there can only be one winner. A bunch of these games, you can make a good case as to why they should be the winners. But ultimately, I ended up choosing one. This will be a bit controversial, but I do think overall this is the best choice. So, the award for the best shooter game of 2005 goes to Fear. Yeah, no, Fear wins. Again, it is close, but I think Fear has the edge because, well, for a multitude of reasons. Number one, its premise. I actually find it to be a pretty cool premise, where you basically just kind of play as like a paramilitary, anti-paranormal, investigative sort of hybrid group. And, well, your main character is being stalked by this little girl that you see on the cover, Alma. And it is fucking creepy, to say the least. She is not someone you want to be messing with. So, obviously, inspired by a lot of Japanese horror games, or horror media, I should say. Also, John Woo films with the bullet time, which of course leads us into the toted aspect of the game, the bullet time. Which, yeah, bullet time in this game is a lot of fun, especially if you're using a lot of the guns, like the nail gun or the Spaz 12. It's really fun. Like, if you guys remember me playing through this game, I had a blast playing this. And, well, it's complemented by the impressive, even to this day, enemy AI. Like, because, again, the game, I will admit the one fault that it does have, at least for some people, is that you are in the office areas for a bit too long at points. But like it's totally worth it, especially since the firefights themselves will be different each time. And well, that's because the different squad enemies that you go up against, they use good use of tactics. They will run away whenever like they feel like they're being too threatened by you, or they will try to like, charge in at the correct points. They will actually take cover and start throwing grenades properly. They'll actually shoot around corners. Like it's honestly very impressive. Like it's very impressive tech to see. And well, going back to the weapons, every gun actually is viable. Yeah, you can only have 3 weapons at a time, but you can still have a use in all of them, whether it be the pistol, the shotgun, the SMG, the assault rifle, the more specialized wonder weapon style of guns. Like, everything has a use. And that's something that I can't say for a lot of games that aren't like retro shooters. So that's pretty nice. And well, of course, this game being more of a action horror game, I think works in its favor. Sure, it may not be like the scariest game in the world, and how I've even seen some tier lists put this down in like D or F tier based off of like the horror aspect, but that's not what I play Fear for. I play Fear for that immersive, action horror style that like aren't really offered in too many games, especially for this time, because a lot of shooter games that were horror themed, they were more so just a bunch of Doom or Quake clones. And well, a lot of actual horror games were just straight up survival horror games. So to have a game that was a good complementary mix, I thought was a good thing. And it's cool for someone like me. So, oh my god, yeah, we gotta get through these categories because, yeah, this is taking a while. Okay, best sim strategy. So this one I'm just gonna spoil. It's mostly just gonna be racing games, but this was actually a peak year for racing games, as I mentioned at the beginning here. So if you were a racing fan, this was definitely your year. There was also one particular other game that I do want to give a shout out to. Oh wait, no, this is sim strategy. Sorry. So, okay, sim strategy. Sorry, I was thinking sports racing fighting. I apologize. But yeah, no, this was still a really damn good year for the strategy genre and even the simulation part. So, let's go over those. So, yeah, like really, really good year. Cuz we got ourselves, or at least like a good enough year, I'd say. Maybe these aren't like, the most respected games out there, but like I still think that these are good enough games to give it a nod. So Empire Earth 2, of course, being the sequel to the first Empire Earth, it's not as like revered as like the first Empire Earth, but it is still a cool concept. Obviously combining Civilization with Age of Empires, and yeah, just going with it with its own sort of RTS thing. And I think it works in its favor. So, if you wanted a cool mix of that, Empire Earth is not too bad of a choice. Advanced Wars Dual Strike, of course, being Advanced Wars 3, essentially. But of course, being one of the first games to be released on the Nintendo DS. And yeah, I would say that it was actually a lot of fun. The music fucking slaps in this game for whatever reason. Yeah, it has a lot of like, new metal-esque grooves to them. It's a weird soundtrack. It is a good soundtrack though, to be fair. And yeah, it just offers a lot of what the previous Advanced Wars games had. Just on a more updated scale, as this is on DS as opposed to GBA. So there's going to be some massive changes. So I'd recommend you guys check it out if you guys are into that. Black and White 2. So yeah, we're starting to get into some weird territory here. So this is the sequel to Black and White, which was kind of a weird like simulation game from 2001. This game, this one's another weird one. By the way, this is made by the same. This was made by the same developers of the original Fable game. So yeah, it's a Peter Molyneux game. So, and well, I think I mentioned this before. I'm not like the greatest fan of Peter Molyneux. I find him to be very pretentious at points. But I will at least say that he does have pretty cool vision. And basically just being a god simulator game, yeah, this game was pretty cool. So if that sort of like weird comedic, god-like elements are cool to you, you can check out Black and White too. It's not the most accessible game, unfortunately, so you might have to not just in controls, but just finding the damn game. So yeah, hopefully you can find a copy. I'm also going to nominate Age of Empires 3. Now, this game, at least from what I can tell, is the least popular Age of Empires, period. And while, yes, I do have my issues with Empires, those are more so just personal preferences rather than, objectively bad game design. Again, I'm more so personally into more macro scale sort of experiences when it comes to my RTS games. Stuff like, more stuff like Company of Heroes or 40K Dawn of War. That's just my personal, or even Command & Conquer Tiberium Wars. That's just my personal preference. But Age of Empires 3, you can still have a lot of fun in. Obviously set in more colonial times. So, yeah, I'd say you guys can check it out if that sort of, style is interesting to you guys. And then, well, we've got ourselves Civilization 4. So, yeah, it's Civilization 4. This was the game that basically made the Civilization games into how they are recognized nowadays. They were still respected before this, but this was basically the first modern Civilization game. And it basically just kind of, set the standard for what Civs 5 and 6 would eventually become. And I got nothing but respect for that. It does, you can definitely, it has, this is the game that had Baba Yetu, which is every Civilization game fans freaking holy song. So it is a very catchy song, though. I will give it credit where credit is due. But yeah, it's pretty big as far as Civilization games are concerned. And well, last but not least, going back to the simulation territory, I'm gonna give an honorable shout out to the movies here. So this was it basically, is you making your own sort of, Hollywood studio taking place between the years 1920, I believe, all the way up until, well, funny enough, 2020. So yes, a game from 2005 predicted the end of, movie theaters. So, God, I'm joking slightly, but it is pretty funny that, yeah, this game does end, it spans 100 years and ends in the year 2020. But yeah, you basically just have to, be a successful movie business. So, and I think that, it's actually kind of cool. Again, it's not the most accessible game, so you're gonna have to, do a few hoops to try to find it, but it's still a game that I think is pretty cool. And I kind of wish that there was a sequel to it, if I'm going to be honest. It also sucks that, some of the online features were removed, years ago, 15, 16 years ago, which is pretty sad. But if that's something that interests you, I'd recommend you guys check it out. But anyways, let's get into the winner. So, alright, sorry. Let's do this. Alright, so the winner for the best sim strategy game of 2005 goes to Sid Meier's Civilization 4. Again, it's the game that pretty much made Civilization into how it is now. So naturally, I gotta give it the win. But more importantly, not just because of that, this was the first more accessible game in the Civilization series. Because, like, admittedly, the first 3 games, they're not bad, but, like, you know, they are a bit, you know, they're isometric games, and, well, they're more grand strategy isometric games, and yeah, there's so many, like, you know, control schemes that are kind of weird for newer players. And so, yeah, like, those older games, those are pretty hard to get into. But Civilization 4 was the first of its franchise to really streamline the gameplay so much that, like, yeah, anyone can get into it very easily. And I'd say it was definitely for the better. And, well, it overhauled the general gameplay to where the controls are much smoother to actually use. There's a lot more of a better sense of, like, being able to look around the map and finding all of your units as well as, like, your cities. And again, I think that was a net positive for this franchise. And as I already alluded to, this was the first game to really go with that more cartoony art style that Civilization is more now, is pretty much known for nowadays. And it's pretty much iconic. And this was also the first game to make it to where every single civilization that's in the game itself or faction, they feel unique because their buildings are specifically designed for that specific culture that you're playing as. You will not have a lot of repeat buildings like you would have done in those first, like, few games. Your buildings are unique and tied to whatever specific to whatever specific faction you're playing as. So that's pretty awesome. And, well, there's a lot more ways to sort of customize the overall map and playing experience for you. And that is something that I have to give credit where credit is due. There's no more weird, like, you know, restrictive gameplay stuff that, like, some of the older games would have had. So I feel like this is definitely a choice that most people would have gone for. And, well, I think it benefits from it. Now let's get into sports racing fighting. This was what I was thinking we were originally doing first, but I don't know, my brain was being dead. So, this was definitely the year of the racing games. If you were if you're, like, a fan of, like, you know, racing games, yeah, even 2005 got you covered. And, well, there's even one particular fighting game I want to get into that, well, I wanted to give a nod. So let's go over these choices. So obviously I have Forza Motorsport in here just for respect, but as far as fighting games are concerned, I decided to go with Soul Calibur 3 for this. And I think that's a pretty fair choice, as this is one of the more respected games in the Soul Calibur franchise. I'd say 2 and 3 are definitely, like, considered the best. And this goes with all versions, by the way. This isn't like some weird exclusivity bullshit that I feel like is kind of annoying with Soul Calibur 2. That isn't as much of a problem with this version, which is awesome. And, well, I just think it's a really fun fighting game overall. That I definitely do think I can recommend easily to pretty much anyone who's a fan of fighting games. Even people who are not fans of fighting games, typically, as of myself. As I'm someone who typically more so likes games where you're not just using your fists, and you're using, like, different weapons. I just find that to be personally my style as far as fighting games. So, Soul Calibur 3 fits that role perfectly. But then let's get into some of these other racing games. So, Burnout Revenge came out this year. And while it's not like as revered as like Burnout 3, it is still like considered to be like a top tier, or not top tier, but like a really damn good Burnout game in its own right. So, a lot more destruction and all that fun jazz. So, I'd say this one's an easy recommendation. And, well, let's get into vehicular combat racing games. Yes, Jack X. As dumb of a premise as this is, and this is a really, really dumb premise, it's like, I think it's kind of cool still. So take Jack and Daxter. Which, I mean, to be fair, you do mess around with, like, some dune buggies in Jack 3. So it's not, like, completely out of the loop or, like, out of, like, you know, the realm of possibility. But yeah, take Jack and Daxter and make it into a kart racer and give the karts guns. That is Jack X in a nutshell. So, and granted, Seymour is probably going to be mad at me for putting this, as I'm pretty sure he hates this game. I know he hates Jack 2, but like I'm pretty sure Jack X is also on that list of games he doesn't like. So, but it's a cool premise, and again, as someone who didn't grow up with Jack and Daxter back in the day, I can still at least appreciate the unique approach to that IP that, you know, Naughty Dog would try to do with this. Because yes, this was the last Naughty Dog Jack and Daxter game, as they would eventually move on to the Uncharted games. So, yeah, I'd say this one's pretty cool. And then we've got ourselves Mario Kart DS, which I think this was a launch title to the Nintendo DS. Excuse me, sorry. Sorry. Something went in my mouth. What? But yeah, DS, Mario Kart. This was actually the first Mario Kart to introduce retro courses. So, like, basically, yeah, remastered courses from older games, bringing it into this one. Granted, from what I've heard, the retro courses are actually not that good in this game. But the original courses are. And yeah, I'd say this one is another game that, like, I can definitely, like, easily see a lot of people gravitating towards if they ever were to port it to newer systems. So if you wanted a Mario Kart game on the go, well, this one's a pretty good option. And, well, let's talk about Need for Speed Most Wanted. The 2005 version, of course, as this is the 2005 Caspian Awards. So, because I know the 2012 one is... I think people don't like it because it uses the same name as this game. It's not a bad game, but... Anyways, Most Wanted. So, this game was the hot shit for a lot of people as far as racing games were concerned. Like, you know, this was another one of the cop chase Need for Speed games, and it was helped by the fact that this game had pretty innovative control schemes for whenever it came out, because essentially this was like the first more modernized control scheme for a racing game for its time, and I gotta give credit where credit is due in that. And of course, yeah, it just being a pretty fun game. So, but of course, let's get into the winner, because got some pretty good choices here. Again, every single category is filled to the brim with amazing choices. So it's, yeah, there's a lot, but we're trying to get through it. So unfortunately, it's taking longer than I was hoping for. I'm trying to speed it up a little bit so that's not monotonous, but you guys get the point. So here we go. The best sport/racing/fighting game from 2005 goes to Need for Speed Most Wanted. Yeah, I'd say this one's probably the best choice if we're going to go with this category here. I mean, this is a pretty iconic game in a lot of ways. So, I mean, obviously, the actual tracks themselves, pretty fun to mess around with. But, as I said, this game is actually pretty important within the Need for Speed franchise because, well, or just racing games in general, because this was sort of the first game that set the standard for how both the controls and just how modern game, like racing game physics, work in even more recent Need for Speed games, and even other racing games that came after it, including Forza. Because, like, this game had a bit more of... It was able to balance between, like, being floaty and having enough, like, grounded weight to it, which complemented a lot of the actual in-game driving that you would do all the time, which, I mean, makes sense. It's a racing game. I don't know. Again, I'm new to racing games, so it's like, or newer to racing games, so it's like, I played Gran Turismo 4, but, like, whatever. It is a game that set the standard as far as, like, the actual driving. So, and, well, this game also benefited you a little bit, like it kind of gave you a little bit of a bone, because this game had a bit of a slowdown mechanic where if you took too sharp of a turn, the game actually would slow down on occasion to kind of give you a bit of a leverage to make up for some of those mistakes, which I think is a pretty good mechanic to, you know, that they added in, and it made it to where the actual, like, driving was a bit more forgiving, which of course then gets us into the cop chases. So this is a Need for Speed game that was one of the ones with the cop chases, which of course is the types of Need for Speed games that I prefer personally. And, well, this game has some of the best cop chases in any game, arguably some of the best, even comparing to that to stuff like, you know, some of the GTA games or even the Watch Dogs games. So yeah, like, as far as, like, cop chases are concerned, yeah, this game has some of the best in that. And, well, I don't usually compliment, like, you know, the use of, like, soundtrack music in any game, but I will admit the used licensed soundtrack in this game in particular was pretty iconic. A lot of nu metal, a lot of, like, rap rock, hip hop, some, you know, even prog music like Mastodon. What the hell? So yeah, like, it was using a lot of mix of, like, what was popular at the time, but, like, thankfully mostly good tracks. Unfortunately, some tracks by artists that I used to like, but have unfortunately recently become aged like sour milk. Again, I'm not going to get into specifics, but just look up what Damon Draymond did. It's very sad, but besides that, with Disturbed, I would still say that, like, overall, the soundtrack still does hold up. And, well, there's a lot of people who swear that this is, in fact, the best Need for Speed game of all time. And yeah, I'd say it is. Or at least it's one of the best. Again, Need for Speed Hot Pursuit 2010 is a pretty close contender, though. Honestly, it's those two games that are considered to be the best. But yeah, like, you can't deny that, like, Most Wanted was a big deal when it came out and is still highly revered to this day. The fact that, like, EA has not, like, re-released this game is pretty sad. I know why. It's because of the license tracks, which is pretty fucking dumb, but even if you have to take out some of the tracks, that's fine. Just give us the damn game back. So, or just allow people to actually insert their own tracks so that they could just have the original soundtrack on their own. So I think that would be the best compromise. But either way, I'd say most people would agree with me on this one. So again, this game's iconic. So I had to. All right. Best multiplayer. So multiplayer games from 2005. They weren't exactly new, but you know, keep in mind this is still kind of before multiplayer games were still like, this is before like, you know, esports were really like mainstream. Like that wouldn't be until around like 2007, I would say. So 2005 still kind of on the lower end as far as popularity, but I think I was still able to find a decent amount of games. I think the Game Awards had a selection. Yes, they did. Okay. Oh, yeah. Okay. Okay, so let's get this out of the way. Again, World of Warcraft should not be on here because it is a game from 2000 and freaking 4. So, by its very nature, I just fundamentally cannot agree with it. So, no thanks for me personally. Guild Wars, on the other hand, makes sense because again, it came out 2005 and it was basically World of Warcraft's direct competitor at the time. So I can at least make more of a justification for that. Of course, Battlefield 2 should not surprise you guys at all, as to my explanation earlier, as it being one of my personal favorite Battlefield games. But then SOCOM 3, like, yeah, I have not talked about SOCOM because, well, admittedly, we didn't talk about it during its heyday. Now we're talking about it. SOCOM is weird because it's also a tactical shooter. It's a third-person tactical shooter, so I guess you can say it's, well, okay, no, because like Ghost Recon actually wouldn't be in third person until Ghost Recon 2, so it wasn't even competing against those games. I guess you can consider it to be like proto-modern Ghost Recon, I guess. But like, admittedly, some of the controls are kind of weird. They're not like terrible, but for some third-person shooting controls, they have a bit of adjustment to get into. Not terrible, but definitely something to keep in mind. But it is still a game that I do think is fair enough to be on here. So, especially since, you know, since Halo was the game for Xbox players, SOCOM was actually the one for PlayStation 2 players. Funny enough. So, yeah, like, in a weird sense, I think I have to agree with this on a weird principle. What the hell is City of Villains? Okay, so I looked this one up because I had no idea what the hell this was. It turns out that this was actually an expansion for another MMO that was called City of Heroes. It was essentially an MMO that came out around 2003 or 4-ish. And, well, it's still online to this day. Like, or at least, a new version. Okay, a new version of the game is online. Like, it did get shut down back in 2012, but it looks like that someone basically made like another studio was able to like make new servers for it just this year. So you can technically play it, but the fact that this game was offline for such a long time kind of sends me at least some red flags. So, and again, I've never heard of this game before, and keep in mind that like a lot of the time I'm not the biggest fan of superhero games anyways, with some exceptions. So I think for me personally, and since this is an expansion to a game, I can't say that I agree with this. So if you like it, that's fine, but we're not going to nominate it. Guild Wars ended up winning, which, fair. So, but let's end up choosing some different games. So, of course, SWAT 4, Battlefield 2, and SOCOM 3 I'm going to nominate here. SWAT 4 co-op alone is worth it. Battlefield 2, of course, and then SOCOM 3. But I'm also going to nominate Day of Defeat source onto this as well. So, of course, this is the indirect sequel to Day of Defeat from 2003. And, well, if you ask me, it's actually a much improved version on the original game. Yeah, it removed the British, but I think making the gameplay a lot smoother was worth it, especially since the original game was on the Gold Source engine, which was kind of already showing its age by 2003. So to have it on the Valve's new engine at the time, the Source engine. Kitty. Oh, I'm sorry. God, he was shaking up. Kitty, what's up? I'm sorry, like he was shaking. He's dreaming. You're a dreaming kitty. I'm sorry. Sorry. Anyways, so, but yeah, Day of Defeat being on the Source engine, which was still new at the time, was a smart move. And well, I'm biased because I like the Source engine. I think it's one of the best pieces of gaming technology ever. So that was pretty nice. And while it's definitely not like, it is a hard game to get into though. I wouldn't call it a tactical shooter per se. I mean, I guess in some ways it kind of is. But like, it's a hard game. So do keep that in mind. So, and also it's like, it's not the most populated game anymore, unfortunately. But yeah, I would say that like, it has enough of a respect. And then, well, we've got ourselves Ratchet, Deadlocked, and Star Wars Battlefront 2. So, admittedly, these are two games that I wanted to nominate for shooter games, but again, there were too many picks. I had to choose it for this. So, okay, so Ratchet, Deadlocked. Obviously, I played through it single player. I thought it was a lot of fun. Well, this game also this game was also admittedly designed more for a multiplayer scene. Because this was it leaned way more into like the shooting mechanics by this point in the series. And at least from what I can with the little experience that I have, I can at least see why this game would have had a decent PvP scene. Granted, it definitely wouldn't have been as large as something like the Halo multiplayer scene. Funny enough, it would actually be something more in lines of SOCOM. But I do think that, yeah, like this one's definitely one that I would personally say makes sense. So, and then, well, we've got ourselves Star Wars Battlefront 2, which, of course, I've got also right there. I fucking love this game. It's, again, another GOAT for me personally. I fucking love Star Wars Battlefront 2. It was one of the earliest games I remember playing on the PS2. That same copy that I've owned as well. So, I fucking love this game. I played it actually several times for you guys before, and I personally still think that it holds up even to this day. So, as far as like it, and also just basically just being an indirect competitor to Battlefield at the time, of course, I had to give it a mention. So, how could I not? This was the year of this game. So, I mean, this was the year of a lot of games, though, to be fair. So, like, yeah. But, of course, there can only be one winner. There's some really damn good choices that we've got above here. Like, again, it's pretty close between several of these games. But, unfortunately, I am going to have to choose only one. So, the winner for the best multiplayer game of 2005 is Battlefield 2. There. You happy? I'm not a Battlefield hater, ladies and gentlemen. I actually like Battlefield games, so much so that I gave it a win. So, yeah. Battlefield 2 is a fun as hell game. Like, of course, the large scale combat is the thing that I would say is the most impressive thing with any Battlefield game. And is the reason why I do prefer playing it over something like Call of Duty or Halo. I just like that more. Like, if I were to play a PvP game, it would be Battlefield. And it's also complemented by the fact that this game has 7 classes in this game alone. Holy shit, that is more than any other game in the entire franchise. And hell, this game, I'm pretty sure, even had this was the first game to implement the squad mechanic, or was that Vietnam? I don't remember. But yeah, this is one of the earlier games to feature the squads mechanic. And yeah, you can have up to 6 players, which, I mean, considering the fact that like more recent Battlefield games you can only have 4 players, that's pretty significant. So that's pretty awesome. Also, the controls themselves, while they're still very similar to that of the games that came before, they're more so just sped up so that they're not as they're not as sluggish to play through, like in Battlefield 1942 or Battlefield Vietnam. Like, and well, since this is on a more updated version of the Refractor engine, you know, those small changes are much more noticeable. And well, considering that this is a modern military shooter, I would honestly argue that this was kind of the beginning of whenever modern military shooters were starting to become a bit more common by this point. I mean, yeah, you had your Rainbow Six and your Ghost Recon game occasionally, but like those were really the only like mainstream-ish modern military shooters that like existed. Yeah, you still like you had some other games here and there, like your Delta Forces and stuff like that. But I do truly believe it. While yes, Call of Duty 4 is, you know, like that game is pretty much regarded as being the game that pretty much solidified that. I would honestly argue that Battlefield 2 was actually the first game to really push into that direction. For better or for worse, you still have to at least, you know, acknowledge that. And I mean, I don't particularly mind because I actually like modern military shooters. Granted, I do like World War II shooters as well, but keep in mind, by 2005, they were starting to be seen as a bit stale. So to have a game take place in the modern day was a big refresher. And that's pretty awesome. And of course, as a bonus, this game has mod support, so there's plenty of mods that you can play with. So hell, this inadvertently helped create the game Squad, because Squad actually was originally built as a Battlefield 2 mod. So pretty influential right there. So, but yeah. Best expansion pack. So this is where we're going to start going a bit quicker because, yeah, I'm looking at the time and, oh my god, it is so damn late. And again, I still got to build that machine back there. So I want to make sure I can get through this as quickly as possible. So, best expansion packs. There were quite a few that I actually ended up choosing. So, and these are the ones I ended up having on here. Doom 3 Resurrection of Evil. It's on the shorter end, but of course, you know, can basically kind of like finalizing the storyline that was in Doom 3, you know, and just, yeah, it was basically just kind of tying up a bunch of loose ends, which was pretty cool. Ghost Recon 2 Summit Strike being the Xbox exclusive expansion pack to that version of Ghost Recon 2. Which that version of Ghost Recon 2 is much more respected compared to the PS2 GameCube version, at least from what I can tell. So that's at least nice in that regard, because, well, yeah, admittedly, I'm not a big fan of the PS2 version, so yeah. Sims 2 Nightlife being pretty, Sims 2 Nightlife, of course, continuing off of the content that was on Sims 2, but added in a lot of new features that a lot of people ended up really liking, including more, items, a new, occult to use, and a few new locales, which was pretty nice. Warhammer 40k Dawn of War, Winter Assault, adding in the Imperial Guard, also now known as the Astra Militarum, into Dawn of War, along with a new campaign, as well as a bunch of new snowy-based maps for you to be able to go around. And then in Rome, Total War, Barbarian Invasion, which also added in a completely new campaign set during the time in which the Huns invaded from the east, as well as a bunch of other Central Asian and Germanic tribes going after the split Roman Empire. And it being a pretty fun sort of precursor to Total War Attila, which is pretty cool. So I'd say like a decent amount of these people would definitely agree as far as like expansion packs are concerned. But let's get into the winner. So the award for the best expansion pack of 2005 goes to The Sims 2 Nightlife. Yeah, I feel like I've been giving a lot of nods to The Sims 2, but I haven't given them a lot of love. That changes, because Sims 2 Nightlife is regarded as being one of the best expansions for The Sims 2. This was the expansion that finally added cars into the game, making travel a lot faster in this, which was pretty cool. This also added in the vampires for you to be able to actually play around as. Kind of weird that they were added in this pack, though, but I'm not going to complain too much. It's cool that they added in a new, playable option for other Sims to become or just use in general. They also added in the new downtown area, which of course added in a bunch of new things for you to be able to do, including going into a bunch of nightclubs as well as restaurants. There are also some new ways to utilize interactions, including dating mechanics, which made Sims feel a lot more alive. And well, that's not getting into the 125 new items that were added into the game, which is a substantial amount. So, funny enough, I actually do also own the expansion on there. I just did not have enough shelf room, so I couldn't put it up. But you get the point. Sims 2 Nightlife is one of the best packs for what is debatably, in a lot of people's eyes, the best Sims game. While I personally prefer 3, yeah, Nightlife is definitely a good expansion. So I definitely do think that this is pretty good. All right. Here we go. Best art direction. So the best visual style of whatever game we've got here. So, or just the visual art look of the game, I should say. So, admittedly, I ended up choosing a bunch of games that we already nominated, which is typical. There were a few exceptions of like different years where we've had like unique games, but I ultimately decided to play it safe. Although, to be fair, I think most people are going to agree with these anyways. I mean, of course, Oddworld Stranger's Wrath for its sort of, cartoony, Wild West, sort of post-apocalyptic look. Time Splitters Future Perfect for it also having a bit more of a cartoony look, mixed with that sort of, alternate history, alternate future sort of sci-fi look that it's got. Psychonauts for its very Tim Burton influenced art direction or art style that especially complements a lot more some of the more creepier sections of the game, as well as some of the comedic sections. Lego Star Wars, funny enough, for its sound design, its emulation of the Lego art style for its individual characters, and also, funny enough, even replicating the actual locales of Star Wars locations. Sly Cooper with Sly 3, Honor Among Thieves, of course, replicating the comic book art style that the cutscenes are based off of, as well as the cel-shaded in-game graphics that, of course, I personally love. And, well, Sid Meier's Civilization 6 for its, more sort of less realistic look and more stylized, influenced look that became a staple within the Civilization franchise to this day. So, pretty big picks that we've got here. One winner, though. You know the rules. So, and I don't think, granted, I will say this one's probably also going to be a controversial pick, but I do think that fundamentally this is probably one of the best picks for this particular thing. So I hope you guys are at least okay with that. But anyways, so the award for the best art direction of 2005 goes to Lego Star Wars the video game. Yeah, this one might be pretty controversial, but I got my reasons as to why I ended up choosing this one. So, and yes, I'm not a Lego game hater. I actually gave it a win. So, and I ended up giving this game the win. But why? Well, this game, of course, replicates the Lego aesthetic specifically for its characters. Its actual in-game levels are more so just repurposed renders from like the movies, but I still think it works with what they got for, because here's the thing is that like keep in mind, I think this was before the time where they were able to like fully render locales to make the Lego look actually look good. So I guess this is the best compromise they would have done, and well, I think it worked, and I think it even helps that the general atmosphere is a lot more lighthearted. Like it's not like super dark. There's some like intentionally like grim moments, like for example in the like after you defeat Dooku, Anakin just like, there's not even a scene where Anakin kind of questions to kill Dooku. He just straight up just chops him up. And Obi-Wan just doesn't even question it. He just allows it to happen. That sounds fucked up in context, but it's super, God. It's grim. Like, that's kind of fucking grim for a Lego game. But like, other than moments like that, the game doesn't take itself super seriously, like, at all. Like, it's a bit more laid back, which I do appreciate, especially since, it's Lego Star Wars. It's not actual Star Wars. It doesn't have to take itself super seriously. And yeah, I do like appreciate that sort of approach that they end up doing. And of course, it's helped by the fact that this game pretty much brought in the iconic grunt sounds that a lot of people love with a lot of Lego games. So, of course, this being a Telltale game, they have a lot of experience by this point with video game design. And yeah, they were able to kind of bring out that sort of like, voiceless, because there's no voice acting in the game. And the fact that they were able to make something as iconic as that work is a testament to how they were able to do it. And, well, this was the game that, as I said earlier, made LEGO games actually respected because, well, truth be told, pretty much every single LEGO game that came out before this were not very good. So I gotta give Telltale credit in that regard. So even if every single LEGO game basically replicated the gameplay for the longest time of this game, you cannot deny that this was a big deal for the time. From 2005 to 2007. Of course, I'm throwing in the complete saga version in this, but you get the point. So this was a pretty big deal. All right. Let's move on to best narrative. So this one was a very, very tough one to choose because there were multiple factors I had to actually consider for best narrative. So, because, well, you'll see the choices and you'll know exactly what I mean as far as like, yeah. This one's so close. Again, like, I will admit it is mostly between Resident Evil 4, Splinter Cell Chaos Theory, Sly 3 Honor Among Thieves, and honestly, Ratchet Deadlocked. Like, Time Splitters Future Perfect, I nominated here because, like, a lot of people do highly regard the story, especially in comparison to the first two Time Splitters, because the first Time Splitters has just no story at all. The second game has this dude in the front cover just kind of relive through a lot of, like, you know, different events from, like, the past of that universe. Well, with Time Splitters Future Perfect, he gets more directly involved, and, well, he meets a lot of cool, interesting characters along the way, and they do a bunch of shenanigans, but really cool shenanigans regardless. And Prince of Persia 2 Thrones, basically, again, it's the conclusion to the Prince of Persia trilogy, like, you know, Sands of Time trilogy, with Prince. Because, again, okay, I gotta explain the joke for those who don't know. In Sly 4, Thieves in Time, Yuri Lowenthal, the voice actor for Prince, he plays a character in that game, and because of that, I kept calling him Prince, because I thought it was funny. So, because he plays as a knight. And, well, he's a prince there, and he's a prince here. So, Prince. So, okay, Prince. I'm sorry. I know explaining comedy kills comedy, but, like, whatever. Yuri Lowenthal he's pretty good in this, within, like, as the prince himself, this prince, and again, that sort of, like, you know, struggle between the light and the dark is, you know, again, as I said earlier, I thought it was a pretty interesting concept, because, again, it kind of showcases that, like, yeah, he's struggling with these two different, like, this alter ego of his, but also, of course, trying to kind of, you know, wrap up a lot of the loose ends that were in the first two games that unfortunately affected him in the long run, that he's trying to finally, like, just seal that fate. And that's something that I think is pretty cool. But let's be real here. The real narrative choices are really between the other four games. Resident Evil 4, of course, being set in, you know, an isolated town in Spain, or village, whatever. And, of course, Leon Kennedy trying to find the U.S. president's daughter there. I don't know why she's there, but whatever. And just surviving a lot of the horrors that kind of come from that. Splinter Cell Chaos Theory, of course. You know, you're playing, yeah, you pretty much try to prevent a World War III after, you know, North and South Korea pretty much go at each other's throats. Turns out it may have been a staged thing that was going on in the background, but it's mostly the character interactions between Sam Fisher and his crew that I definitely do like. And just that sort of grander scale tension that I think I've mentioned a lot that I personally like in a lot of my narratives. And again, this being more of a darker Splinter Cell game, especially in comparison to the first two games, I think really helps flesh out its sort of narrative beats. And then, well, Ratchet Deadlocked being more of a struggle of basically just being entrapped into this basically death ring the entire time, and just sort of unfortunately just kind of potentially risking it all and in this basically bloodbath. It's a lot more interesting in context. Go watch my playthrough. I thought it was pretty compelling whenever I played through it. So, and then of course, well, as I've already mentioned with Sly 3, it made me cry. So naturally, I have to put it in best narrative. I can't, you know, like I mean, yes, I have my issues with some of the narrative beats of Sly 3, but at the end of the day, like, it is still a cool story about just, you know, gathering, you know, new members for the Cooper gang to break into this vault. But it turns out that, yeah, there's a lot of tensions growing as you're doing so, and there's also a lot of, you know, sort of unsolved mysteries for some of the the final antagonist that get revealed here. And again, it's just told in a way that, like, shows that, yeah, Sly as a character has definitely grown by this point. And, well, he's not taking any more shit anymore by this point. So, for me, I have to give it a best narrative nominee. It's in my nature. So, but let's get to the winner. So, it's a really, really tough one, but we're going to do it. So, the award for the best narrative of 2005 goes to Resident Evil 4. If this was not going to win best shooter, you damn best think that it's going to win best narrative. How could it not? So, I would definitely say that, like, as far as just a general premise, like, it raises a lot of questions, but thankfully those questions, you know, end up getting either resolved, like, you know, figured out, but also in ways in which you don't really want to know. And, well, it's also helped by a lot of the more compelling characters that you got going on here. Especially the antagonists like Mendez and Salazar being fucking creepy goddamn motherfuckers here. Like, ugh! They are pretty sleazy in their own right. And, of course, just the banter with, you know, Leon himself, along with, like, some of the other characters, I think is pretty cool. And, well, of course, speaking of, Leon Kennedy is a much more fleshed out and badass character than he was in Resident Evil 2. Because in Resident Evil 2, he was... Well, of course, early Resident Evil games have always just kind of had... They had not very good voice acting, just to put it bluntly. But Resident Evil 4 really did raise the standard as far as, like, you know, voice acting. There are still, like, some cheesy one-liners here and there, but, like, those are severely toned down in favor of just more general, just more general, like, just taking itself more seriously. And again, like, even just having a lot of those character interactions with even just a bunch of characters that come in, like Ada Wong, like, that to me really does make this the definitive story for Resident Evil. And, well, the setting itself pretty much complements that. Being this creepy as hell village in the middle of nowhere in fuck knows where in Spain. Like, it really does, like, sell that, like... And also, here's one thing I will have to give credit where credit is due. this game made it to where Resident Evil doesn't actually have to rely on traditional zombies. Like, I mean, I guess at the end of the day, like, the virus that kind of happens, or whatever the hell happens, like, whatever the hell's going on with, like, the villagers. I'm not going to spoil exactly what it is or what it does. I'm assuming you guys probably already know. But let's just say that it's kind of fucked up. I will say, like, I mean, yeah, they're technically not zombies, but they do kind of act like zombies anyways, but whatever, that gets into a whole thing. Point is, Resident Evil 4 is pretty cool, and I recommend you guys check it out. So, both the original and the remake. So, of course, we're talking about the original in this case. So, alright, Game of the Year. So, this one was an extremely tough one as far as nominees. That being said, I already knew what was going to be Game of the Year this time around. But as far as nominees, this was a tough one. But what did the Game Awards originally think? As far as, like, the winners? Mostly fair, honestly. Again, World of Warcraft would be the only exception that I would probably not have. Mainly just, again, because that game came out in 2004. But the other picks, I'd say they're honestly not too far off. Again, Resident Evil 4 makes absolute sense. You know, gameplay-wise and just narrative-wise, of course. God of War, same thing. Like, again, the fact that this was made by a new studio at the time as well was a big deal. So, as far as I'm concerned, God of War, like, I would definitely say is a worthy enough game to have as a contender. Same thing with Fear. Again, just the general combat loop being worth it alone, but also just its general just narrative beats and its creepy as hell atmosphere really does make it to where it's, yeah. And even Call of Duty 2, even though I will say this wouldn't be my first choice as putting it on, like, you know, a nominee list, I can at least respect it, especially for an Xbox 360 launch title. Because yes, this was an Xbox 360 launch title. I forgot to mention that. Perfect Dark Zero was as well, but I guess Far Cry Instincts was as well. But we can ignore that one. Yeah, no, I would definitely say that. Oh wait, no, Far Cry Instincts. No, that wasn't. Sorry, I was thinking of Instincts Predator. I apologize. The re-release, but anyways. So yeah, like, I would definitely say that these are respectable. Resident Evil 4 was the one that ended up winning this, which, yeah, I would definitely say that that is worth it, especially with how iconic that game has become over the years and just a lot of the things that was added. But we can always improve this. So I will admit this was a tough one, but I ended up having Resident Evil 4 as still a nominee. Instead of God of War, though, I ended up choosing Devil May Cry 3 because of the fact that it, you know, brought back Devil May Cry as a more respected franchise, and it being a pretty good game in its own right. As a matter of fact, I really loved the game myself. And then, of course, yeah, Fear's on here still as well. But then, of course, Splinter Cell Chaos Theory, Sly 3 Honor Among Thieves, and Star Wars Battlefront 2. All of which are 3 of my favorite games of all time. So, and, well, Resident Evil 4 also regarded as also highly regarded. And all these games are highly regarded. God damn it, dude. Again, you see why 2005 was such a really damn good year for video games. Like, every single one of these categories, I have had a lot to say about everything. It's, oh my god. Again, this was one of the hardest lists I've had to do. Not because it was a bad year, but because it was too good of a year. That might actually be a problem in its own right. So, but like I said, I did end up choosing a winner. But make no mistake, I feel like no matter what choice I'd say, there's going to be people who are going to be pissed off. But rest assured, all these games, and hell, even some of the games that like I've listed before, deserve to be Game of the Year. So do not fret with what I end up choosing, because at the end of the day, these are all respectable choices in their own lanes. And I would not blame anyone for, wanting, let's say, this game be the winner instead of that game. But I'm going to go with my guts with this, and we're going to choose a winner. So, here we go. The final award of the night. And ultimately, the winner for this year. So, here we go. The award for Game of the Year 2005, the penultimate award, goes to Star Wars Battlefront 2. If you are a longtime viewer, this should not surprise you. This is amongst one of my favorite games of all time. Though, to be fair, there are some people who are surprised that I did not choose Sly 3. Well, again, if you've been watching this series, you know the common pattern. If I have a really damn good year, I make sure that I have a winner that is completely different for each nominee. And since I already chose Sly 3 as the winner for the action-adventure category, it really was ultimately between this and Chaos Theory. Even though that game made me cry, this is still another game that's like in my top 5, if not top 3. This game means a lot to me. So much so that not only do I have my PS2 copy that I've had since 2006 still with me, but also I have the version on Steam, and better yet, I've got a physical PC released here, making it to where I am never going to have this game ever go away from me. And I'm even thinking of getting an Xbox copy so that it all just be legit. Oh no, he wants out. Alright. So, yeah, Star Wars Battlefront 2 means a lot to me as a person. Why? So, yeah, this game has a lot, like, honestly has some of the best shooting mechanics of any game. Not only of its era, but even to this day. Like, yeah, you can definitely tell it is from the mid-2000s. But again, this is honestly my favorite era as far as just video games as a whole. So I am a little bit biased, but I do think that, like, this game still can be fun for just anyone. Especially if you, like, set it up with modern resolutions in mind. Also, just like Battlefield 2, Battlefront 2 offers large-scale combat. Especially, and what really puts this over the edge is the fact that this game relies on its, or not relies, but it's complemented with the fact that it is a Star Wars game. And I think it works out, especially with the different variety of locations that are provided with this game. Because this game has places like Coruscant, you can go to Naboo, Dagobah, Felucia, Geonosis, Megiddo, Yavin 4, hell, even the Death Star and, like, Tantive 4. So, and of course, this game also offers space battles, which are some of the best vehicular. And that's one thing I will give. That's another thing. I usually don't like playing with vehicles in a lot of just shooter games in general because I feel like they're just a bit too sluggish. Like, yeah, I like playing a lot of Battlefield, but yeah, the vehicles can be a bit iffy for me. This is one of the few games where I use vehicles with open arms. So, like, especially in space battles, they are that damn good to control. And of course, that's not even getting into the Galactic Conquest mode, which, well, yes, like, it's not the most expansive mode in any Star Wars game, or really just any game in general. The fact that, like, they even added a mode like that is pretty awesome. And yes, I will admit, this is a biased pick, because again, this is in my top 3 favorite games of all time, but I don't care. I love this game so much. And even if I'm biased, most people would not disagree. This is regarded as being one of the best games of all time, if not the best Star Wars game, period. And, well, I have nothing but a lot of respect for it. So, and, well, of course, as a bonus, the PC version has a ton of mod support. So, not that that particularly factors into these anyways, but the fact that you can do that is a massive, massive bonus. So, at the end of the day, I'd say that this is definitely the winner for the best game to represent 2005. So, of course, let's recap, shall we? So, of course, these are all the awards we gave out. So, best game by a new studio went to God of War. Best action adventure went to Sly 3, Honor Among Thieves. Best platform game went to Prince of Persia: The Two Thrones. The best RPG went to Castlevania: Curse of Darkness. The best shooter game went to Fear. The best sim strategy game went to Civilization 4. Best sports racing fighting game went to Need for Speed Most Wanted. Best multiplayer went to Battlefield 2. The best expansion pack went to Sims 2 Nightlife. Best art direction went to Lego Star Wars, the video game. Best narrative went to Resident Evil 4. And of course, the game of the year went to the original Star Wars Battlefront 2. As far as top 10 favorites of mine, this is another tentative list because there are so many damn games that I love, but these are the ones that I ended up choosing for now. In no particular order, of course: Sly 3, Honor Among Thieves, Star Wars Battlefront 2, Resident Evil 4, Splinter Cell Chaos Theory, Fear, Battlefield 2, Lego Star Wars video game, Ratchet Deadlocked, Devil May Cry 3, and SWAT 4. But if you thought that, like, 2000s, like, the more recent honorable mentions / guilty pleasures had a lot of games, well, let's just say that there were a lot of games that ended up being snubbed. Even games that, like I said, I'm not particularly the biggest fan of, like Shadow of the Colossus, or, in some people's opinion, the Brothers in Arms games. There were still other games I want to at least give a bit of a shout out. And this is the most I have ever decided to give guilty pleasure / honorable mentions to. Look at this list. Even if you don't even like these games, you cannot deny, and this is why, you cannot deny just how big of an impact this year was. And that's ultimately why I do consider 2005 to be the best game, or the best year in video game history. And yes, I have played a massive chunk of these games. I am not smoking up people's ass here. I have played many of these games. And even the games that I acknowledge are not that good, those are the guilty pleasure parts. Yeah, we've got Hearts of Iron 2, Star Fox Assault, Dynasty Warriors 5, Unreal Championship 2, Dungeon Stage 2, Dark Watch, Haunting Grounds, Pathologic, Battlefield 2 Modern Combat, which of course is the console port of Battlefield 2, Rise of the Kasai, Quake 4, Call of Duty 2 Big Red One, which is the PS2 port of that game, Gun, Star Wars Episode 3 game, Yakuza 1, Shadow of Rome, Call of Cthulhu, Castlevania Dawn of Sorrow, Serious Sam 2, Condemned Criminal Origins, Perfect Dark Zero, which I personally like, Destroy All Humans, Sniper Elite 1, Spartan Total Warrior, Musashi Brave Samurai. And those are just the games that I'm personally interested in to a certain level. That's not even getting into other games that came out that year that a bunch of other people probably like. So, yeah, in my opinion, 2005 is the best year in video game history. Which is unfortunate because that probably means that it's only going to go down from here as far as us talking about, years in video games. But rest assured, 2005 is, in my opinion, the best year for video games. Although, to be fair, 2004 might also be a pretty close contender. So, but for now, 2005 and 7 remain to be the most solid years as far as video games. So, and well, at least in my opinion, music, and even to a certain extent, television. Film, like I said, I acknowledge it wasn't the greatest year, although to be fair. Revenge of the Sith. So, again, I will admit I am extremely biased, but 2005 just does mean a lot to me personally, though, because, again, this is the year that brought us, obviously, Episode 3 and Star Wars Battlefront 2. So basically the two things that got me into Star Wars. And, well, these two gems right here. Sly 3 and From Under the Cork Tree. Two things that made me who I am now. And, of course, Avatar: The Last Airbender, amongst other shows that I can't think of off the top of my head right now. Oh, yeah, the reboot of Doctor Who. Of course, all these amazing albums that you see and video games that are surrounding me. It's just a year that I personally hold a lot in my personal heart. Especially since, I was a kid at the time. And, well, I just want to at least keep a little bit of that innocence with me. So, I hope you guys at least respect that. In any event, that concludes the 2005 Caspian Game Awards. And also the last stream that I'll be using my old computer. I'm really excited to get that going. I will, after this stream is done, I'm going to actually be setting that up and seeing if that thing works. So, yeah. This is definitely the end of an era, I feel like. And hopefully the beginning of a new one. But either way, I hope you guys did enjoy this stream. If you guys did, if you guys did enjoy and you guys stuck around, thank you so much. You guys are legends. And of course, if you guys are watching this on Twitch, make sure to hit the follow button down below and turn the bell icon right there. If you're watching this on YouTube, make sure to hit the subscribe button and also hit the bell icon over there. I would greatly appreciate you guys do that. And also, of course, check out any links that are down below, specifically the Discord and the SoundCloud. If you also want to directly support me on Twitch, make sure to hit that subscribe button over there. If you can't necessarily do that, that's completely fine. I'm just glad that you guys took time to watch this. But regardless of all that, though, make sure to share the stream to other people as well. And, well, continue to be awesome people in the process. But until then, I'll see you guys on the flip side. I'm really excited to go over and get into some new content with that bad boy. So either way, take care and have a good night. Bye.